The first sign of trouble came one afternoon when I noticed tire tracks cutting through the wild grass on the north side of my property. They weren't mine, too wide, too heavy. By the time I followed them to the clearing, I found the source. A convoy of SUVs, shiny and spotless, crawling up my dirt road like they owned the place. And at the front of the pack, Karen, standing tall in her HOA polo, clipboard in hand, barking orders at a handful of her so-called officers. "This land is out of compliance," she declared, pointing toward my farmhouse. "We'll cite him for unapproved structures, lack of uniform fencing, and failure to maintain the grounds." I couldn't help but laugh. "You've got the wrong property. This isn't part of your association." Karen sneered, her voice dripping with superiority. "Oh, don't be ridiculous. All property within a 1-mile radius of the subdivision falls under our oversight." "That's not how HOAs work," I replied, arms crossed. "You don't get to redraw boundaries because it suits you." But they didn't listen. Her officers fanned out across the field, snapping photos, measuring imaginary lines with tape they unrolled dramatically, jotting notes as though compiling a legal case. One even walked up to my barn door and slapped a bright red violation notice across it, the paper fluttering in the breeze. My dogs barked from the porch, but I raised a hand, keeping them calm. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started filming. "Smile," I said. "Every step you take here is trespassing." Karen rolled her eyes. "Film all you want. The council will back me." She couldn't have been more wrong. The next morning, a formal letter arrived, signed by the HOA council and stamped with their seal. It listed a series of mandatory corrections: repainting the barn, tearing down my porch, installing HOA-approved fencing, and, my favorite, paying $4,200 in dues for community maintenance. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. Then I drafted my response. A single page with attached land records, lease agreements, and county zoning maps, all proving that my property was not, had never been, and could never be under HOA jurisdiction. I mailed copies to the HOA council, the county clerk, and, just for good measure, the state attorney's office. 2 weeks later, Karen returned, this time with a sheriff's deputy in tow. She must have convinced herself that her paperwork was enough to sway law enforcement. She strutted up to my porch, waving the violation letter like a trophy. "See," she said to the deputy. "He's in breach of multiple codes. You need to remove him immediately." The deputy, a no-nonsense man with decades on the job, took one look at my documentation and shook his head. "Ma'am, this land is clearly outside your HOA's jurisdiction. You have no authority here." Karen's face twisted. But he's not following our regulations. Look at the paint. Look at the—" "Ma'am," the deputy interrupted. "If you and your officers keep stepping foot on his property, you'll be the ones facing charges." Her jaw dropped. For the first time in months, she had no words. The deputy turned to me, his expression softening. "You've done your homework. Keep these records handy. Something tells me this won't be the last time." He was right. Karen didn't stop, she escalated. Over the following month, her officers tried everything. They blocked my driveway with their SUVs, demanding to see proof of HOA fee payment. They showed up at my farm market booth, warning customers that I was under investigation. They even mailed me fake court summonses, printed on cheap paper with misspelled headers. Each time, I documented everything: photos, videos, witness statements, and each time I forwarded it straight to the county authorities. Finally, the hammer dropped. One crisp morning, a convoy did return to my property. Not HOA officers, but county investigators, escorted by real deputies. They didn't come for me. They came for Karen. Her entire operation unraveled in hours. The fake summonses, fraud, the attempted dues collection, extortion, the SUV blockade, criminal trespass. By evening, Karen's beloved HOA was under formal investigation, and she was served with papers of her own, this time real ones. I'll never forget the sight of her face as the deputies read the charges. Rage, disbelief, and, underneath it all, fear. She had walked onto my property with arrogance, certain she could extend her kingdom by force of will. Instead, she walked away in handcuffs. The council tried to save face, but the damage was done. Neighbors began withdrawing from the HOA entirely, citing mismanagement and corruption. Dues dried up. Meetings fell into chaos. Within months, the mighty association that had once terrorized the valley was little more than a fractured committee arguing in an empty office. As for me, I went back to tending my land, my dogs resting lazily in the sun. The barn still stood unpainted, the porch unchanged, the fence line exactly as I wanted it. My property remained untouched, not by HOA regulations, not by Karen's fantasies of control. Sometimes, when I walk down the dirt road, I can still see the faint outlines of tire tracks from that first convoy. They're fading now, washed away by rain and time, but I keep them in mind. A reminder that arrogance, no matter how loud or aggressive, always leaves traces of its own destruction. And Karen? Last I heard, she was still attending HOA meetings, no longer president, no longer respected. Just another voice in the back row, ignored by the very people she once ruled.